Are some homeowners not going to return home after flooding? Thanks for joining us at 6. I'm Kat Villianzoni.
And I'm Darren Perrin. Just like after Tropical Storm Irene, the state is considering buyouts, looking to minimize future flood damage, especially as climate change increases the risk of severe weather.
Our Calvin Cutler is live in Barrie for us tonight. Calvin, buyouts are not new, and from the looks of it, from the home behind you, that homeowner might be reconsidering coming back.
Yeah, definitely, Kat and Darren, good evening. Now, this was a strategy that Vermont adopted after Tropical Storm Irene. Now, this latest storm is just shining a light on the homes such as this one here in Barrie, which are susceptible to risk.
Destruction, big destruction.
Mark Christie has lived on this plot on Oswald Street, overlooking the Barrie skyline for the last 2 decades.
Everything that was in this bank, all these big trees, just went down the hill.
Christie intended to live in this nearly new mobile home unit until he retires from his career working at Global Foundries.
And it's definitely buckling more every day.
But during this month's flooding and deluge, the hill behind his home broke away, a cascade of mud, trees, and sand, turning his home 90 degrees and crushing it like a tin can, temporarily trapping him inside.
I eventually got out, and I was like, yeah, I'm still shaking up over the whole thing, but I'll get there.
The mud, dirt, and debris buried his yard and car and tossed his fuel tank into his neighbor's yard, leaking into their home. One home in a risky location, put at greater risk by more frequent severe weather as a result of climate change. Meanwhile, just down the road at the Berlin Mobile Home Park along the Stevens branch of the Winooski River, the devastation is apparent and many lives have been upended. Properties like these are exactly the type that the state would buy up.
We're reducing risk before bad things happen. So if we can do projects to reduce flood risk, then we don't have to deal with the aftermath of flooding events.
Since Tropical Storm Irene, the state has bought out over 100 homes as part of the Flood Resilient Communities program using FEMA and COVID money. State Hazard Mitigation Manager Stephanie Smith says since then, voluntary buyouts in Northfield have paid off.
And there was flooding in the same neighborhood, but it was a lot less severe than it was during Irene.
And the latest storms have once again raised the question of whether we should reconstruct, especially in downtown communities.
Like with Barrie City, are there areas where we should strategically buy out? And are there other areas where there are other projects we can do, like floodplain restoration projects, or giving the river its space elsewhere, so that we don't see that same level of risk.
But back in Barrie, Christie says he wants to rebuild, but says he just doesn't have the funds.
I just got to accept it, but I don't want to accept it.
He says he would be open to a buyout. Now, Smith with Emergency Management tells me that it's too soon to tell exactly how many homes could be eligible for a buyout as a result of this flood. But she also adds that after the immediate emergency crisis is over, the state will also be convening a housing task force to tackle some of those bigger existential questions about where we rebuild and how.